This is Gamergate 2.0. This is Gamergate 2.0. So the backlash against woke in gaming as well as feminism is continuing to reach a massive high peak. This started earlier in the year with the release of a game called Stellar Blade, and now after Black Myth Wukong, things have gone absolutely ballistic, but that's not all. A game kit called Concord just came out, and the sales are dismal. Guys, watch the video to fully understand why this is Gamergate 2.0. Gamers are lashing out against woke culture, against feminism in games, and this is going to change things forever. So watch the end of the video to fully understand the implications of this and how this is going to change the gaming industry as well as the world around us. And today's video comes from Spawnwave. You can check out John's channel. It's linked in the description. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video.
Haven't been going well for Concord pretty much since they showed it really for the first time. I know before that they showed it and it was like a cinematic that just showed us the title itself. But once they explained to us that it was a hero shooter, it was pretty much all downhill from there. And now since it's been out for a little while now, right? Like more than a week. Well, we're starting to get some numbers coming in, and I guess even I'm a little surprised on how low these sales are. I mean, we're talking historical numbers and not in the good sense of it. We're going to go over that here today. And actually, what analysts think Sony's future is now with live service games, and, well, it may actually surprise you. So if you guys enjoy these videos, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new. We have talked quite a bit about Concord in the last week or so, and it's really hard not to observe what's happening here because it does obviously affect a lot of things, I'm sure, within Sony. It probably affects things going on within Firewalk as well. But now, seeing some of these numbers, it is, Sony's going to make a pivot, I feel like, pretty soon on this whole thing. So let's take a look at actually some of these numbers that we're getting. Now, these are estimations based on just some of the data that's come in, specifically for like tracking like placement, sales charts, engagement for players. But this is over on IGN, and they had an entire write-up, which I will link down below in the description if you want to read more. There is a lot of good information. They really dove into this and spoke to many analysts around what exactly is happening here. As I mentioned, this whole Concord situation, because it is linked to Sony and first party, it's pretty big in gaming right now, just the conversation around it and the eyes on it. But per Circana analyst Matt Piscatella, who we do cite quite a bit actually when we talk about the monthly sales in the US, says, citing Circana's player engagement tracker, on Monday, August 26th, Concord ranked 147th in the U.S. PS5 daily active players across all titles, with fewer than 0.2% of Monday's active PS5 players playing the game. Now, analyst Simon Carlis, who authors the GameDiscover.co newsletter, estimated that Concord's total sales are sitting around 10,000 units on Steam and around 15,000 on PlayStation. Now, this is in response to IGN just inquiring about it, but the estimation right now, 25,000 copies of Concord have sold. And there are estimations that Concord cost Sony over $100 million to make, and I can't really refute that much because 8 years of development, and again, not full-scale development, but even conceptualizing the thing as far back as 2016, yeah, it's going to cost a lot of money overall for Concord. And also keep in mind, Sony bought Firewalk because of this game, seemingly. At least they looked at it and said, oh, cool, a hero shooter that is very close to basically what Overwatch was doing, and I guess they didn't think it looked generic, but they thought there was something there. So there's also that added cost. We don't know how much money Sony paid out to probably Monsters to buy Firewalk, but it wasn't free, so I have to assume it was cheap. But either way, we have some more here.
So, guys, basically, Sony released a game called Concord recently. It was basically like, it's basically kind of like Overwatch with feminist propaganda sprinkled throughout it and wokeism. And as a result of this game cost Sony a lot of money. They said that it cost over $100 million to develop, although it goes even deeper than that. There's actually some posts that say that Sony's actually going to lose $200 million on this game, and these are crazy numbers. So the number of people playing the game at this point is something like less than 1,000 people. Like at one point, it was like 50 people playing this game after it came out. It's crazy. A game that cost over $100 million to develop and was in development for almost 10 years. It was in development for 8 years, almost 10 years, and it cost over $100 million to develop, and no one is playing this game. Like, this is a massive rebuke to Sony. And if those of you that don't know, right now they had purchased a studio called Bungie. They were the manufacturers of the Halo video game series. They previously were owned by Microsoft, and Microsoft allowed them to spin off and do their own thing. And they created a game called Destiny. Destiny had a lot of players, but evidently there's no more new Destiny coming. And after Sony purchased them, and now Destiny is being closed out or gutted, to my understanding. And they spent like $3 billion to acquire this company. So Sony is really between a rock and a hard place. They keep on losing. They dropped a game recently called Stellar Blade earlier this year. It was a first-party game. Not a first-party. It was a third-party game that was exclusive to the PlayStation 5. So they have the exclusive rights for the game. However, the game was centered very much around a very beautiful character named known as Evie. And there was a lot. IGN lashed out at the developer of the game, calling him an incel, saying he didn't know what a real woman looked like, and that the character model looked like a doll. It was then revealed that his wife was also a graphics designer. She was also a developer working in the same industry, and his wife looked almost identical to the character in the game. So it's basically based on like South Korean women. We know that South Korea has some very, very beautiful women. And the feminist propaganda, was all up in arms. IGN had to issue an apology. They tried to blame it off on their office in France, saying that the office in France, IGN France, is an independent office from the entire company and blah, blah, blah. Then they literally went after Black Myth Wukong, and they tried to slander the game and say that there's a history of sexism. It turns out it was just absolute lies. The developers of Black Myth Wukong also made it very clear that for anyone who receives review codes for the game, they could not, they were told not to discuss feminism or wokeism, any of that crap. Black Myth Wukong devs told streamers to avoid politics in their playthroughs. The Chinese studio granted early access on the conditions that topics like feminist propaganda were not mentioned. What followed is the Streisand effect in full force. So there was a lot of these people who were pissed off. List of streams: Black Myth Wukong, a new action role-playing game released this week. One stood out. It basically banned feminist propaganda in the game, and there were a lot of these people who were pissed off about it. On platforms like Twitch, YouTube, streamers are flipping a metaphorical middle finger to a handful of restrictions. So this came from Wired. Wired is ranting and raving about this. The sales of Black Myth Wukong are absolutely insane. This is what this game has sold. Had sold over like 10 million copies in the first 3 days since its release. So a lot of these woke journal like IGN, they're spreading propaganda. The game is one of the best-selling games ever released. It's one of the best-selling games in China ever released. Its global response has been absolutely insane. It's all over the place. Streamers are playing it like crazy. It very well may take Game of the Year. And you have to understand that at the Game Awards, believe it or not, this is just in a few months. We are now in September, and the Game Awards is basically literally just 3 months away. So we're just 3 months, a little over 3 months away from the Game Awards. We'll be in December in 3 months. And this is the reality that we are now in. Guys, this is a massive backlash, absolute massive backlash to basically woke culture. And again, I'm not attacking feminism, but keep in mind that women chose feminism. They chose to, they basically chose the ideology. Don't blame feminism for what's happening. You have to basically hold the individuals accountable and say that feminism did not take advantage of women. Women took full advantage of feminism. But now this is the backlash that we're seeing, where gamers are voting with their wallets, just like they did when the whole Bud Light thing happened. And it's massive. This is going to be a massive L for Sony, and you're seeing this happening at companies like Disney right now, where Star Wars various Star Wars shows are being canceled because moviegoers are like finally done with it. They're like, we're not going to finance this anymore. We're not going to tolerate this. Outlaws just came out, and that's another thing. That's another thing that's going very, very bad. That's a game centered around a feminist narrative. Basically, it's very woke. The game is structured poorly. The character design, they went to great lengths to make sure the character looked like a real person. So it's very unattractive. It's not a very the characters are basically very ugly in the game, and the game is very poorly designed. It cost the company crazy amounts of money to make this. This was not cheap, using the Star Wars license. And people are saying, hey, listen, don't play this game. It's a waste of time. It's a waste of money. The structure of it is absolutely garbage. Even people who are kind of woke, like M Critical, he's basically like, yeah, this game is ass. I mean, this is the reality. This is a massive backlash. This is 100% Gamergate 2.0. Gamers are lashing out against wokeism in gaming, propaganda in gaming. They want this garbage to be kept out of their games, and now this is the response to it. They're like, just stay, get rid of this, keep this away from our games. Let us play our games in peace. Like I said, Stellar Blade came out earlier in the year, and it has absolutely taken off. It was one of the first hits this year. So gamers are voting with their wallets. They're refusing to buy games that have these narratives. Stellar Blade release reminds gamers of the feminist Megalia group getting booted from the game over quality control. Yeah, guys, like they're booting, like, so for example, any groups that they have these diversity, equity, inclusion groups, like they basically tossed them out of there and said, we don't care what you think. We're just going to make the game that we want to make. And this is what we got. We ended up getting this game. That's like a back shot of Evie and her armor. I mean, wow. Stellar Blade, an action RPG developed by Shift Up, is almost there, blah, blah, blah. So the game did come out. It's set in a futuristic setting. And of course, IGN and the others, they were constantly looking for reasons to put down the game and attack the game and say, oh, the game doesn't promote feminism. And guess what? The game sold tons of copies and made lots of money. And that's what people want. People want games that do not have political narratives. Black Myth Wukong, they went to great lengths to say, do not discuss politics around our game. Do not discuss woke culture around our game. Do not discuss feminism around our game. Just talk about the game. Talk about how the game runs. Talk about how the game plays. Discuss if you like the game or not, what you like about the game, what you don't like about the game. Keep your personal politics and all of that garbage out of the game. And as a result of that, they created a game that did not adhere to any of this nonsense. And now the game is absolutely fire. Totally fire. IGN tried to destroy this game. They were not able to. IGN tried to destroy Stellar Blade. They were not able to. It's just one banger after another. And this has to be really pissing off Sony, because they're basically looking at this and they're like, we're trying to push this narrative, this woke culture narrative, and it's not working out for us. Gamers are rejecting this, and now they've lost like possibly $200 million after releasing this steaming pile of crap known as Concord, where it's basically just a bunch of skins, like, of woke people in the game, doing Overwatch. The game is not as bad as, let's say, Off the Justice League. That's a game that came out, Suicide Squad, where they basically go and try to take out members of the Justice League. Reviewers have said that the game is definitely not as bad as that game is, and that game still did a lot better than Concord. Concord had a massive budget, evidently, like that's like the development budget, and I believe there's also a marketing budget. And despite all of this push, Sony has lost all of this money. All right, Sony has lost all of this money, and this is while Sony's like raising the prices of PlayStation right now in Japan. They've raised it by $90 again, and since it came out in Japan, evidently the PlayStation 5 has gone up by a total of around $200 in Japan. It's great. It's insane. It's really, really insane. And, gaming is becoming a very expensive hobby at the moment. But, we're basically seeing how people are voting with their wallets. I don't own a PlayStation 5. They're saying the next PlayStation 5 Pro is actually going to cost is going to cost around $599 or even $699, $700. The PlayStation 6 is like, it's pretty much definite at this point that this thing is going to cost $700. Like, yeah, like pretty much expected to cost $700. Inflation is only going to get worse. And as we get to that $700 mark, it's kind of obvious, like, now we're really pushing towards $1,000. So they're really trying to enter into that PC space where they're like, well, this is an alternative to a PC. So, if you don't want to play PC, if you don't want a PC, you're going to have to get a PlayStation. And I think that they're heading in a very dangerous direction because, you have Steam, and Steam is incredible. The thing about Steam is pretty much anything goes on Steam. You can develop whatever games you want, put them on Steam. You don't have these political narratives being driven like, oh, you have to develop characters that look a certain way. And, and it's about diversity, equity, inclusion. And I really think that it's very possible that Valve may release their own Steam console. And that we're all kind of like looking towards that, looking towards the notion, like, because Valve doesn't have to release first-party games. It's great when they do. It's great when they do, but they absolutely don't have to. And, again, they don't have to release first-party games. It's great when they do. But with Steam, a lot of the games are cheaper on there. I'm buying so many of my games, I just buy them off Steam at this point. I buy most of my games off Steam. And I'm so anti like PlayStation right now. Like, I'm just like using my head. I would just rather pick up a gaming laptop than pick up a PlayStation. Because at least with Steam, I own my games in the sense that they're there. I can play them from anywhere. I have my Steam Deck. I don't have a lot of time to play games as much as I want to because I'm constantly working, crunching out content for you guys, working on my other lines of business. There's some of you who are like in the comments, like, you should have been doing this years ago. I was sick for 4 years. Just to point that out, I was very sick for 4 years. My entire business, like, I had to shut everything down. I was sick for 4 years, and once I got better again, once I started getting my strength back, I got back on the ball. I got back on the wagon. I started grinding, and, I built my YouTube business up over the course of a year. This is a 6-figure business. The YouTube business, the channel you're watching right now, this is a 6-figure business. And I built that in 1 year of returning to YouTube because I was gone for a couple of years. I was very, very sick. I've been on YouTube for 10 years now. It's been 10 years that I've been on YouTube, and it's crazy, but like a lot of people don't realize hard times are coming and gaming is going to continue to grow. I think that there could be a bit of a collapse of the gaming industry, but it's going a reshuffling. And I think that if a Steam console comes, that's going to even create a lot more opportunity because a lot of people are just going to pick up the Steam console, and there may be different versions and power, and, you can upgrade it. That's just like something Valve would do, like allowing you to upgrade the RAM in your console. So I think companies like Sony that are doing the whole woke thing right now, oh, we're going to have we're going to keep being woke. People will pick up a Steam console and just play and download their games off Steam and play their games on Steam. Because if we're going to have a digital only future, then we're just going to, people will trust Steam. They're going to say, well, and here's the thing about Valve, it's so funny. Like, what's his name? Like the founder of Valve, Gabe Newell, he basically said, we don't care about failing at this point. We have a crap load of money. And you have a bunch of engineers at Valve just creating different things, experimenting with different things, and then putting products out, and they just don't give a damn. They don't give a shit if they fail or not because they have tons of money. They make so much money from Steam. They could just sit around, make stuff, and put it out there. And if it fails, it fails. And that's so incredible. They're one of the only companies that are actually innovating right now. Like, they're basically the responsible for like really kicking off the whole handheld gaming PC thing. Before the Steam Deck, you had the Nintendo Switch, and it was basically a watered down experience. And I love my Nintendo Switch. I love the Nintendo Switch with the OLED screen, but it still was a watered down experience, and you could not play current generation games. With the Steam Deck, you can now play current generation games, and it's very much a handheld experience where you're in handheld mode, and you can do so much. It's basically a Nintendo Switch for adults. I can't wait for the next version of it to come out because with better hardware, more powerful graphics engine, but it has 16 gigabytes of RAM. And because it has 16 gigabytes of RAM, I truly believe that's one of the major reasons why it will now be able to handle a lot of current generation games going forward. And you're able to tweak the settings to your liking to get the game to run at least reasonably well. But I'm just very pleased with what Valve has done. And gamers are fighting back. Gamers are making it clear they're not going to take it laying down. If you want their money, you're going to have to work for it, and you're going to have to put out games that they actually want to play. So this is Gamergate 2.0. Gamers are lashing out against woke in gaming, woke culture in gaming. They're making it very clear they're not going to tolerate it. And if you want their money, you're going to have to work for it. They're just not going to hand it over to you. So I think that's a very good thing. And it's sending a massive message to the gaming industry of what's happening and what's going to be expected going forward, guys. And guys, if you're enjoying the content, join the Angry Guy Clubhouse. You get exclusive insights, access to our podcast, and a copy of our free digital nomad blueprint. You can get all of that by clicking the link in the description to get started. Guys, what do you think regarding all of this? Are you surprised? Do you agree? This is Gamergate 2.0. Gamers are lashing out at woke culture in games, and they're like, we're not going to spend our money on this crap anymore. Let me know your thoughts. We'll talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWA Men walking away. And cheers.